Like and subscribe right now, or you're going to have bad luck for the rest of the week. As technology continues to advance, human lifestyles change and adapt along with it. But even a few years ago, we couldn't have imagined that people could communicate with others continents away with just a click of a button. Technology usually makes our lives easier. But have we ever paused to consider how people lived way back in the Middle Ages? What did they do for entertainment? What were their views on things? Let's shed some light on 10 amazing things about the Middle Ages. Number 10. All for science. During the Middle Ages, scientists and researchers were continually more and more influenced by the words and wisdom of ancient philosophers, such as Aristotle. The renewing of such thinking led these scholars and scientists to become curious about the world around them and how things truly worked. Therefore, they started studying the natural world, being both more reflective and experimental with it. Their curiosity led them to create many revolutionary precursors and items we take for granted today. It's largely true that, had not people of this period embraced and improved upon ancient ideas, that much of the technology we enjoy today may not have been invented later on. Even common people during the Middle Ages started embracing architecture, art, and classical literature. This shift in thinking and perspectives no doubt led into the Renaissance, which then led to our modern world. Number 9. Marriage rituals did not exist. These days, getting married seems like such a big hassle for so many cultures around the world. Marriage ceremony traditions are thrust upon us, such as buying an expensive wedding ring and hosting a large, complicated ceremony. It's common for weddings to cost so much money that parents save for years to pay for them, or couples go into debt to cover the costs. Some people don't even get married because it's too expensive. But in the Middle Ages, marriage wasn't looked upon as a method to impress people. Very little was required to make a marriage official. A couple didn't have to wed at a church or need a priest to do so. Many people would get married in front of a church and didn't have to worry about marriage rituals either, cultural or religious. Maybe we should go back to some of this simplicity. Number 8. Architecture. Through the Middle Ages, humble thatch huts and houses slowly became larger, more elaborate, and built from straw, wood, and mud to wood and stone. Those with positions, titles, and money could afford to build massive castles on fortified, defensive positions atop hills or rock formations. One of the main reasons for the design of castles was to protect kings and lords, with sets of guards always watching from castle posts for attacks and threats. Not long after castles began popping up around Europe, commoners decided building their towns near the castles and serving the local lord was a fair exchange for the lord's protection. This was the system of serfdom. But over time, commoners also learned how and built defensive walls around their towns for further protection. As the towns expanded into cities, the walls became taller and thicker, housing not just homes, but churches and shops as well. With all of these advancements and defenses over time, people were able to live and prosper better than before. Number 7. Developments for women. Even though women during this time were still restricted by the law for what they could and could not do and where they could go, they were persevering to gain more freedoms for themselves, namely the freedom to make a living independent of a man. Opportunities were few, but enough that a woman could earn a living herself if needed. Peasant women, for example, could harvest food, raise livestock, or make textiles. Middle-class women could also create textiles, but they could also run their own shops or engage in brewing alcohol. And women from the upper classes could work as merchants, lend money, or work as housewives, as they didn't technically need to earn a living. The lowest class or poorest women, though, usually had to fend as servants to rich households or as laundresses. Some who couldn't even do that had to peddle food and wares to sell at the marketplaces for whatever they could get. It seems dreary, but these times were the beginning for women fighting for more independent lives. Number 6. Interesting ways to raise money for charity. Unlike today, people hundreds of years ago didn't have public 501c3 charities to donate money to. Therefore, in the Middle Ages, people had a rather interesting tradition in how they did so. An entire town would get together to help ferment alcohol in a giant cauldron. When the alcohol was ready, a massive party was held, with the entire town invited. Of course, many townsfolk became drunk, and that's when money would be collected from them. As the saying goes, drunk people love to spend money more more than anyone else. The meaning was very smartly applied to real life. Number 5. Mob football. This form of football isn't like today's modern version. It's rather interesting, created during the Middle Ages. Imagine a regular game of football, but instead of rules, player limits, and a ball to kick, this was a far more free-for-all version. The game was played by as many people present who wanted to participate. The ball in question was a pig's bladder, and the game didn't have any strict rules. As regular football was banned during the Middle Ages, this tweaked version was played every Sunday for fun. It was quite popular, with many townsfolk dropping by to cheer and watch people play the game. Number 4. Archery. Though football was banned in the Middle Ages, that doesn't mean there wasn't anything fun to do. In comparison, as football was banned, archery was compulsory. This law was enacted by King Edward III. It stated that all males were required to practice archery at least 2 hours a week. Therefore, it was the most convenient for the practice sessions to be held on Sundays, supervised by clergy to ensure the sessions were safe. No wonder we hear so much about how people in the Middle Ages were so skilled in archery. Number 3. Treatment for the Great Plague. The bubonic plague, which did happen more than once, was one of the most terrifying times in human history. The plague would create giant lymph nodes on people's bodies that were extremely painful and usually resulted in death. The worst part of this disease is that it's highly contagious, so much so that if a family member got it, the rest of the family would flee to save their lives. During these terrible times in the Middle Ages, doctors started thinking up possible solutions. One such solution was the suggestion that if a town was infected, healthy people from there should move away to safer, cleaner environments, rest well, and eat nutritiously. Though this wasn't a mandatory treatment, it did help. This is because towns were usually very unsanitary places. By moving away from them to villages or more isolated houses in the country, the environment was cleaner. People therefore had fewer chances of coming into contact with rodents, which were spreading the disease in the first place. Number 2. Impact of the plague on the poor. Even though the plague was an utterly devastating time that killed nearly half of the population, the aftermath was bittersweet. Those that survived found that their living and working conditions improved. They weren't required to leave their homes, and houses stopped being demolished. With less people to compete with, land and working positions opened up. The demand for skilled labor went up too, therefore increasing wages for everyone. In addition, new technology was being invented to help improve the efficiency of work, enabling people to use animals more to aid with tasks. With much land available for purchase, lower and middle class people started buying the land, increasing their wealth and status. They used the land to farm and raise animals, then would sell the meat to demanding markets and good prices. In addition, byproducts of animals were also sold at market, such as milk, butter, and cheese. Exports increased, and with it, the prices of the goods. Number 1. One name. For our number 1 point, we have a rather curious fact to share about people of the Middle Ages. During that time, people only had one name. They didn't have surnames or last names. Not only that, people didn't have nicknames either. Everyone, no matter their station, had only one name they were called by. But later on, when surnames slowly started becoming a thing, humorous nicknames based upon some feature of the person in question would be applied. For example, if a man named Arthur had red hair, people started calling him Arthur Red. Even stranger to us, these nicknames could change over time as the person changed. And the person had no say if they even wanted the nickname to begin with. So, if Arthur Red lost his hair over time, people would start calling him Arthur Bald instead. That's not very nice. That is all for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Since you've watched this far, why not click on the 2 videos on your screen? See you there!